We have a major update about CM Punk's return to AEW. This according to FightfulSelect.com. It looks like AEW has tentative plans to bring CM Punk back in the near future. I'm going to talk about when, where, and how that might happen. But first, as always, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you get notified whenever a new video is released. CM Punk. Let's talk about him. Mr. Professional Wrestling News, whatever you want to call him. This dude has been in the headlines more than anyone, I think, in pro wrestling over the past few years. CM Punk, it looks like, is on the verge of returning to AEW. The time, it looks like June 21st. This according, again, FightfulSelect.com. Go check them out for the full details on this report. They do a lot of good work over there. But according to Sean Ross Sapp and Fightful Select, June 21st, the show that they just announced, the lead-in show, or the go-home show, I should say, to Forbidden Door, which will take place in Chicago, Illinois. That should have been your first clue. Just a few days ago, AEW announced that they were going to have the June 21st edition of Dynamite from Chicago, Illinois. And now it looks like CM Punk has been, at least internally, slated to return at that point. Now, again, these plans could change. Of course, they do give that caveat. Sean Ross Sapp did give that caveat in his reporting, but this is major news. And on top of that, we have heard that there are plans for Punk for them to maybe announce this in advance. So we could even hear before the June 21st episode. We could even hear prior to then about CM Punk's return, and they might want to build this up into something major, much like they did with the Elite. Remember, they never explicitly said, Excalibur, Taz, no one on commentary, Tony Khan, nobody ever said that the Elite were going to return at Full Gear in 2022. That was kind of always hinted at. They had those vignettes that kept everything kind of, up in the air until we saw the final graphic on the Go Home show. Even then, Excalibur never really said the Elite. Nobody ever mentioned them until they finally returned. And when they did, they got a massive ovation. You could see something very similar happen here with the CM Punk situation. Again, we're a long way from June 21st. A lot could happen until then. But I'm telling you this right now. If this is true, and if this does happen, it's going to shift all momentum towards AEW. It's going to give them a big boost going into the summer. Summer Punk 3.0, 3 times a charm. Let's try it again. Here's what I'm going to say about this. Of course, the report also indicates that there are plans apparently for a meeting between Punk and some other talent as well to try to get them down and work past their differences. And I think that is necessary. You have to have that because as great as Punk is as far as moving the needle and getting those extra pay-per-view buys, getting merchandise buys, all that stuff, as great as he is as a draw for your company, one thing you want to make sure is that your roster, from the top to the bottom, is okay with this guy coming back in. Because remember, when he did the Great Bomb, it wasn't just targeted towards the Elite and Hangman Adam Page. In that, he name dropped MJF. And that was a little shoot worky, but there was some real sentiment behind that. And remember, he went out there and he didn't just bury 3 or 4 people. He buried the entire company. He said he works with effing children. That's not just saying hey, whatever, I work with 3 or 4 guys that are immature or whatever. That is calling out the entire company. So I think there definitely needs to be some amends made for that. And you're going to have to be sure that your roster is okay with this guy coming back in. Because if they're not, and if you have enough talent that are not okay, you don't want to mess up the chemistry. You don't want to mess up the vibe of your backstage just to get one guy back. It just does not make business sense. At the same time, you also got to think about this. You have Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks right now still negotiating their contract. We know that their contracts are coming up at some point. We're still unsure about Kenny Omega really because he might have injury time added to his contract, but As of right now, we assume that they're renegotiating their contracts. If that is the case, how is this going to affect that? And hopefully it doesn't too much. Like, the end game you really want to see is Punk and FTR versus the Elite in some way, shape, or form. If that story is told, I said this yesterday and I'm going to say it again. If they find a way to shoot the gripe bomb into a work, it will be one of the greatest stories in pro wrestling history, period. Like, there's no way, shape, or form about it. Like, you turned something that was so toxic, that everyone was talking about, that could have destroyed, that almost did destroy the backstage locker room, that almost did destroy the morale of your backstage. And we're here now, and there's a potential for all that toxicity, all that bad stuff that I can't say here, turned into a story involving not just a few wrestlers that you might know, involving 6 of the most talented professional wrestlers of this entire generation. CM Punk, Dax Harwood, Cash Wheeler, and on top of that, you have my boys, the Elite, the Young Bucks, and Kenny Omega, arguably the best professional wrestler of all time. Like, that isn't just a very good story. That is something that can break through. That is something that people will watch. That is something people will pay to watch. That is something that will help grow AEW's business, which all 6 men have a vested interest in at that point, or at this point. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens. If this is true, let it be. I might have to take a quick trip up to Chicago. I'm already doing too many trips. By the way, if you're going to be in Vegas for Double or Nothing, be sure to come on by and say hello and scare the absolute crap out of me when you're there, because that's going to be a fun time. I'm officially going to be there. It's going to be fun. I'm also going to be at AEW Dynamite in Baltimore. Yes, Baltimore, in a few weeks. So be sure to let me know if you're going to be there, and we'll meet up, say hi, and all that jazz. But back to the story. CM Punk. How it should happen, I think, is very similar. Like, if this is going to happen, I think it should be very similar to the way he debuted. And I think it should kind of be an open secret that CM Punk is going to be there. Drop the hints. Drop the best in the world lines. Drop everything. Drop the fire burns. All that stuff. Do it. Drop every single hint you can without saying CM Punk's name. And then to begin the show, silence. No music. Excalibur doesn't say anything. The fireworks go off with nothing happening around him. And then the lights flicker, much like they did at the first dance. The lights flicker red and white to signal the coming of the GOAT. And then you hear CM Punk's music hit. I know the Wintrust Arena only holds like 4,000 seats or whatever. Roof's going to absolutely be blown off that arena by the time CM Punk comes down the ramp. And it's going to be one of the biggest moments of the year for AEW. It could be one of the biggest moments in their history. And look, I understand CM Punk, right? I know there are a lot of people who don't want to see him come back because they don't like the way he handled things. And I, for one, can honestly say I 100% disagree with the way he handled things. And I know people want to... here's the thing. I don't want to really go all the way into this. I've done this a million times on this channel. So if you want to go really hear me go off on this whole situation, go back in the archives. But you can't draw an equivalence to what he did and what the Elite allegedly did. It is just, I don't think that is a smart argument to make, to be quite honest. Then again, it's pro wrestling and who really cares? But I care enough to say this. The bringing back CM Punk has to be okay with your locker room. Like, that's the number one thing you have to make sure of. And you also got to make sure that everyone's on the same page. Because just as soon as like one miscommunication was made, it just seemed like the dominoes fell and it kept getting worse. Like that summer, looking back, is just one of the weirdest things. And AEW has to be careful. That's the biggest thing they have to be careful of. There can't be any miscommunication going forward. There can't be, someone accidentally calling out Punk, or Punk, taking someone, cutting a promo as an attack on him. He can't do that. And likewise, the Elite or whoever is Jericho, whoever's involved in a feud with Punk, have to be mindful about that now, because just as easily as this fell apart the first time, it can just as easily fall apart the second time, and you don't want to see that happen. I don't, as a wrestling fan. It was really weird and toxic covering that whole thing and talking about it, but hopefully we're past it. Hopefully we just get to enjoy professional wrestling. I can't wait for it. Hopefully this is true. Let me know what you guys think, though. CM Punk coming back, apparently, allegedly, reportedly, 6/21, June 21st in Chicago, Illinois. Let me know what you guys think about this. Who should he wrestle? Is it going to happen? Let me know your opinions in the comment section below. Also, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already, so you get notified whenever a new video is released. There we go. And until next time, keep it real.